Part 138. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1371. The mount system should be enabled only when the player's adventure level reaches level 4. Now the dead are already level 3.5, and the mission was completed too well. The preset conditions were met, so the mount system was enabled in advance. I also got a flying level 3 bone dragon as a mount. This does not mean that before level 4, players used their legs to travel. In the past, they could also use the riding tools provided by the system. They could also get some four-legged soldiers to ride. In theory, as long as the opponent can carry you, it is okay to get a two-legged soldier to carry you. However, these can only simply increase the player's movement speed and do not provide any other bonuses. Sometimes there are side effects. One of the side effects is that the strength decreases faster. Because it is not a mount, the player is not comfortable riding, which causes the strength to decrease faster, and sometimes even loses vitality. But the mount system is different. Riding a regular mount will greatly delay the decline of strength. This is a great advantage. After reaching level 4, players can get mounts through various methods. The most common ways are quest rewards and mall purchases. Mounts do not need to be leveled up, and their rank and level automatically grow with the player. Mounts need food to feed, and even undead mounts need to consume the breath of death. When riding, it can not only increase the player's movement speed, but also increase the player's vitality by percentage. Calculated based on naked vitality. It is very useful for players with high blood volume such as warriors, but for professions with low blood volume such as the dead, the increase is not satisfactory. In addition, if the player chooses not to ride a mount, he will not enjoy the blood volume bonus. However, mounts can participate in battles as a normal type of soldiers, which is also quite useful. The movement speed of the mount is related to its type and quality. The blood volume bonus of the mount is only related to its quality. This bone dragon, which is a quest reward, is a purple perfect level mount, which can increase the vitality of the dead by 13%. The dead now has about 300 blood points, which means an increase of 40 blood points. It is really meaningless. But if it is allowed to participate in the battle as a level 3 bone dragon, its combat power cannot be underestimated. Bone dragons are melee physical soldiers. Its health is much higher than that of the dead person. Its attack and defense attributes are even better. If it blocks in front, it will be a powerful meat shield. However, bone dragons also have bone body characteristics. Attacks such as arrows have a certain probability of passing through its body and hitting the players behind. It is not a very qualified shield. Of course, Xiaoming doesn't care about this kind of thing. The mount has little effect on him. In terms of movement speed, Xiaoming can use the portal to move instantly. Increasing blood volume is not as good as the mental shield. Even if there is one more soldier, it is not as good as his mind beast and clone. However, this bone dragon is very useful for intelligent programs. Being able to fly can allow players to go to many places that they could not reach before and overcome many obstacles that they could not overcome before. Xiao Wu'er is now staying in the Neza 6 auxiliary mechanical arm, Iron Blood Neza, of the dead person, and is quietly communicating with Xiaoming in spirit to express his joy. Suddenly, Bai Yulan asked, "Brother, do you know why I gave you a bone dragon as a mount?" Xiaoming knew that he must have a deeper meaning when he heard it, and hurriedly asked, "Brother, do you have a deeper meaning?" "There are many kinds of mounts, but the bone dragon is the most suitable for you. Do you know why? Please teach me." "Haha, it's very simple. The bone dragon is also a kind of skeleton soldier. You can develop intermediate skeleton soldiers," Xiaoming said word by word. "Yes. But you have to be careful. If the development fails, this bone dragon will disappear. If you want to get a mount again, you have to wait until the 4th level. Well, thank you for your reminder. I'll go back and think about it. Xiaoming thanked Bai Yulin solemnly. At the same time, he decided to go home and continue the development. With his success rate, there is almost no need to worry about failure. He can even pursue the best results. However, Xiaoming didn't want to perform in front of Bai Yulin. In order to avoid giving up after preparing to cast a spell many times, he would notice something. It is better to wait until I get home and then close the door to test it. Later, he did just that. After giving up more than 10 times, he finally succeeded. The quality of the Bone Dragon has been upgraded to the Orange Epic level. When riding, it increases the player's health by 21%, the single combat power is also quite strong, no less than a 4th level soldier. Bai Yulin was also very satisfied when he told the dead to treat them with caution. If he had flesh and skin on his face, he would probably show an expression of a teachable child. Unfortunately, no expression can be seen on a skull. But you can judge from his mental power. Just telepathy will do. Brother, you don't have to be too cautious. With your development level, the success rate is still very high. I remember that your pet is well developed, let it out and see. The pet system was actually opened at level 2. But among Xiaoming's 4 characters, except for the explorer who is an ascetic monk and got a pet with the holy statue, he did not personally equip pets for other characters. There are 3 reasons. First, pets need to level up, which is troublesome. Second, pets have low combat power and he has too many substitutes. Third, he is unwilling to spend that money in vain. After all, pets are much more expensive than soldiers, and they need to be fed with specific food, which is too troublesome to serve. They don't provide much help. Only the pets of the ascetics can be exchanged for faith points, and they don't need to eat, drink, defecate or urinate, which is very convenient. However, Xiaoming himself does not need a pet, but the intelligent programs do. So when they make their own decisions, they all spend money to buy a pet. Xiao Wu'er understands the development capabilities of the dead, so he specially matches pets of the skeleton soldiers and has developed them himself. During this period, he failed twice, wasting a lot of money. The pet of the dead is now a 3rd level purple perfect skeleton lizard. The reason why Xiao Wu'er chose it is to use it as a means of transportation and a meat shield. Although the pet is not a mount, riding it can indeed increase the speed of action to a certain extent. It is very practical. At present, it is considered a high-end product of the same type, which means that Xiaoming's characters are not short of money, so they can afford it. Xiaoming can of course rigidly require Xiao Wu'er and other intelligent programs not to buy pets. However, Xiaoming's money in the game was earned by them through international trade. It's too much to not let them spend their own money. This pet also caught Bai Yulin's eye. Every time he met the informant, he would play with the skeleton lizard for a while. Today, because of the handover task, Xiaoming was too busy to remember it, so he quickly summoned the skeleton lizard. Bai Yulin rode on the lizard's back and gave the informant the next round of tasks. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1372. The second link of the task chain: Greybone City's Road to the Sea, Peaceful Rear, Purple Master Level Task. Task requirements: eliminate the threat south of the number 7 outpost in the south of Greybone City within 3 months. This task allows the accuser to use the Chamber of Commerce guard under his command. Please note that in this task chain, the guard can be used a limited number of times. Each time it is used, the task evaluation will also be reduced. Be sure to use it with caution. As the president of the Greybone City branch of the White Fang Chamber of Commerce, the accuser is allowed to recruit a Chamber of Commerce guard of 100-500 soldiers. The rank of the team members must not exceed 4th level. This kind of guard cannot be transferred at will, and can only be used when the system allows it. This task is a situation where the system allows it. Xiaoming has not paid much attention to taking care of this guard all the time. Recruiting soldiers costs money, and you have to pay wages every day, which is not cost-effective. However, the accuser can directly summon various skeleton soldiers, which saves the cost of recruiting soldiers. But the salary cannot be saved. The system relies on this to hold back the player's development momentum. Besides, even if 500 4th-level soldiers are recruited, their combat effectiveness is not as good as Xiaoming's own, so why waste money? Again, the intelligent program has a different idea from Xiaoming. When Xiaoming was not operating, Xiao Wu lived within his means and built a guard team of 250 skeleton soldiers. Only the intelligent program can choose such a number of people. Players will definitely not make a team of idiots. In the guard team, only the captain Hui Guguyi is a 4th-level flying skeleton, and there are about 70 3rd-level skeleton soldiers, and the rest are all 2nd level. The strength is really not good. Fortunately, the soldiers are relatively comprehensive, including swordsmen, archers, shield soldiers, and cavalry. They are all summoned by the magic of the dead. In this mission, the system allows players to use guards, which means that there is a possibility of encountering large-scale battles. Player characters plus dozens of mercenaries may not be able to cope with it. Xiaoming looked at the pitiful guards and decided to forget it. It would be easier to go alone. Riding on the developed bone dragon, the dead told the sky and flew to the south. Only a handsome back was left for his subordinates to admire. Just kidding, the undead rarely have the mood of admiration and admiration. Once the dead told the dead left, they went their own way. The admiration was just Xiaoming's own flattery. Post number 7 in the depths of the desert is actually a military camp, with only dozens of tents. In the desert, it is difficult to build checkpoints and fortresses. After they are built, it is not easy to maintain. A city with a higher defense. Places like outposts can only have tents, and there is not even a wooden fence around them, because there is really no so much wood. There is an oasis south of post number 7, which has become a settlement of a desert orc tribe. In the desert, there is everything if there is water. With the advantage brought by the oasis, they have strong strength, only slightly inferior to the Grey Bone City. The relationship between the two sides is neutral and hostile, with only some minor frictions on the border, and no major fights. The orcs are irritable and the undead are irrational, and they will basically fight when they meet. The leaders of both sides know what kind of virtue their race is, and they don't take such trivial matters to heart. Generally speaking, the orc tribe should not look down on the territory of the Grey Bone City. Because it is originally a desert dead land and has no value. Similarly, the Grey Bone City has no intention of the oasis. Bai Yulin's goal is the Mediterranean Sea in the north. There is no reason for the two sides to fight. However, everything cannot be imagined alone. Next, once the Grey Bone City uses troops to the north, the old nest is empty, and it is hard to guarantee that the orc tribe will not come to steal the house. After all, the enemy to the north of the Grey Bone City is also an orc city. They are probably connected to each other. If the orcs in the north feel that they are in danger, it is not impossible to pay the orcs in the south to attack the Grey Bone City from both sides. Even if the orc leader in the south has some foresight, he should understand the principle of lips and teeth are cold. Take the initiative to attack the Grey Bone City. If the Grey Bone City beats him to the seaside, when the strength of the undead clan develops, it would be strange if he does not turn his guns to attack him. How can you allow others to snore beside your bed? But then again, even many emperors in China, which is at the peak of civilization, do not understand this principle. For example, during the Warring States period, Qi watched Qin destroy the heroes one by one without intervening, so that it could not stand alone in the end. Their political wisdom is also very limited. The African people are not enlightened, and their cultural level is still at the tribal stage. It is normal that the orc leader does not understand this principle. Of course, if he has a bad temper, he may have a brain twitch and attack him. It is unknown. Bai Yulan issued this task in the hope of finding out what kind of temperament the leader of the southern orc tribe has. Targetedly eliminate his threat to the rear of Grey Bone City. The person in charge of post number 7 is a 4th level intermediate necromancer. He has long known that there will be such a task, and has been waiting for the adventurer who takes the task to come to him. After all, he is a local snake and knows the southern orc tribe best. No matter who does this task, they will definitely come to him to get information. You can make a small profit from it, and this is not considered corruption and bribery. The money is earned openly. If the adventurer is short of troops, he may have to pay a high price to ask the outpost garrison to help. That's not just a matter of making a small profit. He can get a better wizard robe. So, after knowing that the task was released, the undead wizard began to look forward to the arrival of the adventurer. If the adventurer is quick, he should see him tonight. If he is slow, he should come in 3 to 5 days. However, he waited all night, but the adventurer did not show up. Don't worry, there are still several days. He continued to wait. Unexpectedly, at noon the next day, the system told him that the task of Ning Rear had been successfully completed. It almost drove him crazy. What's going on? The person who took the task did not show up at the outpost, but he completed the task so quickly. Bullshit, right? My money. But the system will not lie. The task must have been completed. The undead wizard classmate couldn't figure it out anyway. How did the adventurer complete such a difficult task? The other party is a force second only to the Grey Bone City. How can this threat be eliminated? Is it to buy peace with money? Come here, all of you. The wizard raised his hand and called a nearby skeleton cavalry squad. I order you to go to the south to see the situation of the orc tribe. If there is any abnormality, come back and report to me. If there is no abnormality, return in 3 days. Yes, after the cavalry captain answered, he immediately led a dozen subordinates and galloped to the south. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1373. When the cavalry team arrived a few kilometers south of the outpost, they were shocked by what they saw. This is not an exaggeration. As skeleton cavalry, they are made of bones, lacking flesh and skin to fix them, so they are not very strong. The mandible is one of the bones that is easy to fall off. Among the low-level skeleton soldiers, at least 3 or 5 out of 10 have no mandible. But it is not a big problem. They can get off the horse and pick up the bones and put them back. What exactly shocked them so much? Nothing, except that the lake in the center of the oasis has disappeared. Only a deep sand pit is left, which is being slowly filled by sand blown in from all around. There are dozens of animals around, wailing at the sand pit. They all rely on this lake water to survive. What will happen if the water is gone? One small animal is smarter. It raised its head and sniffed in the air, then ran to the south. The captain first sent 3 cavalrymen back to post number 7 to report this special situation. He also had to lead the team to continue the investigation. The wailing animals were just sad because of thirst, but they didn't know that after the lake water disappeared, the plants around the lake would soon die and the oasis would no longer exist. If they didn't hurry up to find the next water source, they would soon fall into the arms of death. Post number 7 last investigated this place about 5 or 6 days ago. In just a few days, the whole lake disappeared. The captain looked around and couldn't see any spies from the orc tribe. He couldn't help but wonder. They had to get water from the oasis every day. It was impossible for them not to know about such a big thing. But no one was sent to deal with this matter. Could it be that the orc tribe did it? Did they move the entire lake away? That would be really powerful. The captain looked around the oasis and decided to continue south to the outskirts of the orc settlement to investigate the situation. Along the way, we found that many animals were migrating to the south. They probably knew that the oasis was gone and were looking for new water sources. Animals have strong instincts. They can detect changes in humidity in the air and sand, and feel in which direction there may be water sources. The orc settlement is not too far from the oasis. Due to the presence of orc scouts, the skeleton cavalry squadron could not get closer. From a distance, we could see that the orc tribe was also preparing to migrate to the south. Many orc people were carrying large and small bags and riding camels to the south. There were also orc troops patrolling back and forth along the way for protection. As expected, the orcs already knew that the lake in the oasis had disappeared. Without water, this tribe could not continue to survive here, and they were also ready to try their luck in the south. As for whether there would be new water sources in the south, the skeleton cavalry squadron leader did not know. At this time, the orcs also saw this small group of undead cavalry, so they sent out 2 orc cavalry squads to attack from the left and right. The skeleton squad leader made a prompt decision and turned around and ran with his men. The situation was almost known, and it was time to go back and report to the undead wizard. The orcs must be very sensitive when they migrated. Next time they come to investigate, they have to hide farther away. Unlike the captain's suspicion, the undead wizard who heard the report can confirm that the disappearance of the lake water is probably caused by the adventurer. Otherwise, the task of Ningrir would not be completed. But he couldn't figure out how a mere third-level adventurer could make a lake disappear. Could it be that the guy is particularly good at drinking? Did he drink the lake dry? Xiaoming certainly doesn't have this ability. If it was so much meat, he could absorb it all and save it, but he really couldn't drink so much water. Previously, in the city lord's mansion, Bai Yulin had already given a brief introduction to the deceased about the number 7 outpost and the southern orc settlement. Xiaoming thought at the time that as long as he dealt with the lake, he could destroy the oasis and the orcs would not be able to survive there. As for how to deal with the lake, he had already thought of it. He would use the power of the sand fruit. Although he had never been exposed to the world of One Piece, he and Crocodile had similar ideas. Xiaoming had 4 7 shadow clone avatars that absorbed the sand fruit. After long-term testing and training, he had mastered a lot of tricks. The biggest feature of the sand fruit ability user is that it can absorb water and create more deserts. Later, Xiaoming's orange source energy tree bloomed with flowers representing the devil fruit system. After that, these devil fruit abilities can not only be used by the 7 shadow clone, but Xiaoming himself can also use them at will. For this mission, he planned to use the power of the sand fruit to suck the lake dry and destroy the oasis. However, when he personally came to the oasis, he saw the animals drinking water by the lake. He felt a little bit of pity in his heart. If the lake dries up, how many small animals will die of thirst? Let's try another way. Since we can't destroy the lake, we might as well move it away. If this oasis moves a long distance to the south, the orc tribe will have to move with it. They can't be too far away from the water source. In that case, the orc tribe will not have the conditions to send a large army to attack the Grey Bone City over a long distance. At most, they can only send a small force to make trouble. It won't affect the overall situation. But, how to move such a large lake? Xiaoming first thought of the ability of the ice fruit. Freeze the lake water into a large ice block, then smash it into pieces, and then you can move it. However, this plan is completely unfeasible. Because this ice block will be very large and very heavy. I probably can't carry it by myself. Fortunately, there is plan B. Another way is to use the ability of the smoke fruit. When there is sufficient water vapor, breeze, and stable atmosphere, the relative humidity reaches 100%. The water vapor in the air will condense into fine water droplets suspended in the air, reducing the visibility at ground level. This weather phenomenon is called fog. As long as the lake water is evaporated into mist, and then the body or the clone is transformed into smoke to guide it, all the mist converted from the lake water can be completely led from the air to another place. Evaporating the lake water is also very simple. It can be done by using the magma fruit and the ability of the flame fruit to provide continuous high temperature. Although, in the list of fruits that Xiaoming has eaten, there is only one magma fruit and one flame fruit, but as long as one of them is the deceased himself, it is enough. The energy of the deceased is extremely high, far exceeding that of the 7 lights shadow clones. After he exerts his fruit ability, he will produce a lot of magma, and it will be easy to evaporate the lake water. After the fog rises, there will naturally be 6 clones that turn into smoke, guiding the fog to roll to the south. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1374. The water of the oasis lake was evaporated by a large amount of magma flames. Such a big thing was discovered by the orcs very quickly. A large number of orc troops and masters gathered in the oasis, but they were helpless against the magma burning in the center of the lake. The 7th shadow clone who used the natural devil fruit was already about the strength of a level 7th level. The dead who used the ability of the magma fruit would be even stronger. The strongest in the orc tribe here was only level 5, and was on par with Bai Yulin, the lord of Grey Bone City. Facing a level 7 master, he was just a younger brother. Among the troops in the tribe, even the strongest Thunderbird was only a level 5 soldier. Even if they were allowed to fly to the center of the lake, they could only become roasted chicken. They were still powerless against the large mass of magma. At this time, the best way was actually to use magic. Ice or wind magic could play a role. Ice magic could neutralize the high temperature of the magma, prevent the lake water from evaporating, and turn the evaporated water vapor back into rain. Wind magic can control water vapor to stay in place, and when the temperature slowly drops, it will naturally turn into water and return to the lake. However, the orcs have never been good at magic. Although the shamans in the tribe know some magic, most of them are bloodthirsty and combat-related magic. And the level is also very low. To fight against the natural devil fruit, you must have high-level magic. They are not at that level at all. So, after struggling with the magma, flames, and smoke for an hour or so, the orcs finally found that everything they did was useless. They had to give up. They could only send some masters to follow the direction of the smoke to see where the mist would go. In the end, the rolling smoke stopped in front of a plateau. Then the temperature dropped rapidly, it rained, and a lake formed again in the low-lying area. When all the lake water was moved to a new location, the magma, flames, and smoke disappeared in front of the orcs, and finally only a flash of lightning streaked across the sky. Because he didn't want to be exposed, Xiaoming recovered the 7 stars shadow clone, and the body of the deceased used the power of the thunder fruit and ran away directly. I don't know how the orcs discussed it afterwards. Anyway, they made a decision in the early morning of the next day. Move the settlement to a new lake in the south. The system prompts that the task is completed. On the way back happily, Xiaoming passed by the sky above the orc tribe and checked it by the way. The strength of this tribe is actually not to be underestimated, and the troops are also fully equipped. I don't know what other players would do if they received such a task. They are probably in trouble. But in fact, this task takes a full month, and professional players have many ways to get it done. There is no need to cheat like Xiaoming. For example, the simplest method is to divert the trouble. Pay the tribe to attack other cities, or ask other people to attack the orc tribe, so that the orcs will have no time to find trouble with the Grey Bone City. There are two difficulties in this method. The first is to take out enough money to impress the tribal leader, the second is to open up a channel to meet with the leader. For a large guild with many people, these are all solvable problems. On the contrary, it is quite troublesome for Xiaoming, who really can't bear to spend this money. In addition, you can also engage in economic warfare. Take away some strategic materials necessary for war from the tribe. For example, without food, the orcs will be unable to launch a large-scale war. Orcs are generally simple-minded. They don't know that there will be opportunities for war in the near future. It is not difficult to buy food at a high price at this time. It's just that the cost will be relatively large. If the player develops well in the orc tribe or has allies, then you can also provoke disputes within the tribe. As long as you create a riot, you can delay a lot of things for the orcs. You can also ensure the safety of post number 7. Of course, there is a more unethical way, that is to attack the oasis. Filling or moving the lake like Xiaoming, even a large guild can't do it. But they can poison the lake water. The poisoning of a large area of tribesmen is guaranteed to make the tribe from top to bottom anxious. But the consequences of this move on the local ecology will also be very serious. Once exposed, it may backfire, causing the orcs to go all out and fight to the death with the Grey Bone City. That would be counterproductive. In short, as long as you are willing to use your brain, there are always more solutions than problems. Xiaoming is sometimes intimidated by the wisdom, experience, and imagination of the professional player group. He really doesn't need to worry about the players. The informant returned to the Grey Bone City Lord's mansion to hand in the task, and it was another highest experience reward. The adventure level was raised to level 3, level 25, and the strategic level was level 2, level 10. Generally speaking, most of the tasks accepted on the adventure map will not reward strategic experience. Only tasks closely related to war will give a little. Xiaoming relied entirely on his super personal strength this time to greatly shorten the task completion time, and the effect was outstanding, so he would get this top reward. In addition to experience and money, the informant finally obtained the qualification to participate in the formal war. Don't look at this as money, treasure, or skill. But this qualification is priceless for players. As long as you perform well in the war, you can get military merit rewards. Military merit rewards are the most generous in any country or race. The most important affairs of a country are sacrifice and war. Then it is not comparable to experience and money. There will also be rewards such as titles and positions. The informant may become an officer. The next is the third round of tasks. Bai Yulan gave the informant two choices. One is reconnaissance of the enemy city, the other is harassment of the enemy city. What it means is clear at a glance. Reconnaissance is to try to obtain intelligence from the enemy, and harassment is to try to make the enemy organization chaotic. Both are preparations for the subsequent war. It is obvious what Xiaoming will choose. Reconnaissance requires patience and brains, which Xiaoming lacks. Harassment requires force, which is relatively simple. So Xiaoming chose reconnaissance mission. Reconnaissance of the enemy city, Purple Master level mission. The deadline is 1 month, and conduct a full-scale reconnaissance of the target city. The focus is on the military aspect, to find out the enemy's strength, deployment, and the situation of generals at all levels. The more comprehensive the information obtained, the better. There must be a question, isn't harassment easier? Why did Xiaoming choose reconnaissance? He thought that if he went to do the harassment mission, once he exerted too much force, he might drive the enemy away and directly occupy the city. The rewards for the word mission would be very good. However, the entire mission chain seemed to be over, and there was no chance of war. Wouldn't it be a lot less missions to report the dead? Each mission is an opportunity to upgrade to level 5. Doing missions should be a long-term process, not a one-time effort. So, Reconnaissance is more appropriate. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1375. Gabes is located on the west coast of the Gulf of Gabes in the Mediterranean Sea. In later times, it was a port city in Tunisia. It has a population of about 100,000. It is an industrial center, a distribution center for materials, and an import and export port in southern Tunisia. The trade in dates, olive oil, wine, leather, and wool is quite prosperous, and there are large fertilizer plants and sugar factories, etc. It is also a fishing port. It has a very important status. However, the basis of the adventure map is the historical period corresponding to the Northern Song dynasty. And it has been modified in the game. At this time, the age of exploration was far from coming, and the Renaissance had not yet begun. The whole of Europe was still in the ignorant, backward, and barbaric Middle Ages. Europe had not developed, let alone Africa. The city of Gabes may be just a small fishing village now. Even in later times, it did not have many people. For this, the Magic Planet game must be modified. So Gabes in the adventure map is a small city of the orcs. The deceased, Yin Xiaoming, found out when he arrived nearby that this orc tribe was not the same branch as the one south of post number 7. That one is the desert orcs, and this one is the swamp orcs. Each of them is a type that adapts to the local living environment. Xiaoming put on a stealth suit for the informant, and he entered and exited Gabes as if he was in an empty space. He also had some ideas on how to get intelligence. Because he wandered around in this small town, he unexpectedly awakened 5 spies. What does spies mean? As mentioned earlier, the New Han Kingdom used the DNA of some young people to create some clones and transformed people in the Yanhuang 3-star system as labor and cannon fodder. When these transformed people are not doing anything, their intelligent programs are actually in the Magic Planet game. Manipulate the activities of some NPCs. Zhang Xiaoming's DNA was also selected. Therefore, he has a large number of clones in the Yanhuang 3-star system. Due to the genetic connection, Xiaoming's own mental power is strong, and the Zerg's mental control skills. When these NPCs appear near Xiaoming, Xiaoming can gain control of them. He can even use some skills with the help of their bodies. Even if they are separated in the future, they will still obey Xiaoming's remote command. It's just difficult to report to Xiaoming. In fact, this reconnaissance mission is not easy. The orcs of Gabes know the Grey Bone City in the south, and they are very repulsive to the undead. Although the two sides have not officially started the war, the relationship between them is not very good. The dead man, who is a necromancer, will have difficulty even entering Gabes. Xiaoming sneaked in by stealth, so he could not show up in front of the city guards, nor could he enter and leave some important places, otherwise he would be chased. If you want to inquire about the news, you can only find some unimportant people. It also depends on how loyal the other party is to the city. More loyal people will report directly to the guards, which is also a trouble. Therefore, players should try to avoid getting intelligence from orcs. There will also be humans, elves, half-orcs, and other races in the city, and there may even be some sea people. They don't have such a good relationship with the city. As long as you are willing to spend money, you can still dig some information from them. But the problem is that these people's information is very limited. If they are not orcs, how can they know the confidential information of the city? The task of reporting the dead happened to be to target top-secret military intelligence, which was difficult to find out. It can be seen that the difficulty of this task is quite high. Fortunately, there are these 5 spies. Among the 5 people, one is a half-elf from Europe, the other 4 are local orcs, and one is a level 2 lizardman archer in the army. Xiaoming first arranged for a local native wolf-headed man to book a room in a hotel in the city. He sneaked in by himself and it was much safer to enter the room. He met with these spies separately to understand what they knew about Gabes. There is no doubt that they don't know much. The level 2 lizardman is already the highest ranking one here, but unfortunately, he doesn't even know the basic information about how many people there are in the city's army. He is also a guy who muddles around. The intelligence gathered from them did not even reach the bottom line of the reconnaissance mission. What should I do next? How should the identities of these 5 spies be used? Experience tells Xiaoming that as long as he is willing to spend money on them, he can always get through the upper joints and establish a relationship with the orcs' high-level officials. After careful consideration, Xiaoming chose the half-elf Alan from Greece in Europe. He has the best identity cover, a businessman. As a foreign businessman, it is generally safer. If you take out some goods that Gabes needs to trade, you will definitely be quickly received by the high-level officials. At that time, you just need to hide quietly aside. There will be a chance to use telepathy to obtain the required information. Some people may say that it is not easy to meet the orcs' high-level officials. Isn't the informer invisible? You can always meet him by sneaking into the meeting hall, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, or the military camp. The idea is good, but the problem is that these extremely important buildings are protected by the gods, system, and the informer cannot enter without the corresponding identity. Moreover, the invisibility ability of the informer will be broken near these buildings. So choosing to use Alan to proceed step by step is also a helpless thing. Alan, I heard you have good stuff to sell? Did your family make a fortune in Greece, by a small vendor? Mr. Alan, these things are really good, but it's a pity that there are too few by a certain purchasing supervisor. Boss Alan, we want all these goods. You can ask for the price. Also, can you please ship another batch, by a certain government official? My dear brother Alan, from now on, you will be my distinguished guest in Gabe City, and I will give you the best preferential terms. We may not have other things, but Xiaoming, who is engaged in international trade, has quite a lot of valuable commodities in the warehouse. Just showing some of it through the cracks of your fingers is enough to make the people of Gabes envious and jealous. Please note that this is barren Africa, not rich East Asia. The gap in the level of development between the two is simply that one is in the sky and the other is in the sewer. This is Gabes, who still has some financial resources. In any inland city further south, you wouldn't be able to afford enough money to eat these goods. Relying on his cherished goods to clear the way, Alan spent a few days climbing up step by step. Finally, the city lord of Gabes came to meet Alan in person. As soon as they met, they put their arms around each other and talked extremely affectionately. Xiaoming was a little shocked. Unexpectedly, there are such smooth people among the orcs. He was the opportunity to tell the deceased to complete his mission. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1376. The mission was completed very smoothly. Alan met with the city lord. In the topics of various business negotiations, he cleverly inserted a few words about security. There was no need for the Gabe City lord to answer. He only needed to recall the military strength of Gabe City in his mind. The informant who had been hiding nearby could get the information. The city lord did not doubt him. After all, this was a half-elf businessman from Greece. He had nothing to do with the undead. There was no other such wonderful relationship in the whole game, like the one between Xiaoming and his clone. How could the NPC think of it? The Gabe City Lord entertained Alan warmly and answered every question. After the deal was reached, he sent him back to Greece. It was not to drive people away, but to hope that Alan would hurry up to deliver the goods. The previous batch of goods was very popular with the civil servants and the army of Gabes, and the supply was in short supply. What kind of goods were so popular? It was the pure grain wine brewed by the craftsmen of the Song dynasty from the Far East and the food carefully cooked by the chef. Even high-end weapons and treasures would not be so popular with the rough orcs. Only wine and food are most to their taste. You know, China's cooking level is the best in Pangustar. In the Middle Ages, Europe was not yet civilized. Compared with Chinese food, their food could only be fed to pigs. European wine is okay. Due to the difficulty in obtaining clean water, Europeans are used to drinking wine to replenish water. So wine is still okay. But you will get tired of drinking the same kind of wine all the time. Good wine and food from the east quickly conquered the orcs of Gabes. At the dock, senior officials and generals of Gabes came to see Alan off, looking forward to his next batch of goods from Greece. Alan smiled on his face, but cried in his heart. You can't buy these good things in Greece. They are all goods taken out by the deceased. Under Xiaoming's instructions, Alan set sail with a dozen guys and sailors, and found an island not far away to temporarily stop the ship for rest. Waiting for the next action instructions. Xiaoming controlled the informant to leave Gabe City, but turned into a beam of light and returned to the Grey Bone City. This is the ability of the shining fruit. Even if it turns into a beam of light, it can't move at the speed of light, but the movement speed will be very fast. Today is Wednesday, October 19th, and it took 5 days to complete a reconnaissance mission. Moreover, when people are in the enemy city, they must concentrate. Once the role is switched, the invisible suit can't be maintained. So Xiaoming has to be online all the time. It's actually very fast to complete the task in 5 days. But Xiaoming is still a little greedy and worried that the informant will not get the best reward. It's completely unfounded worry. You know, for this kind of task, although the shorter the time, the better the reward. In fact, there is still a reward cap in secret. It's not infinitely raised. Even if the informant hands in the task a few days later, he can get the best reward. Needless to say, his adventure level and strategic level have risen by 5 levels each. There were no rewards of gold coins and resources, but Bai Yulan gave the accuser 250 level 4 skeleton cavalrymen to fill his Chamber of Commerce guard. Any player would be excited about this reward, but Xiaoming was not interested. The reward was a good one. After all, with the level of the accuser at level 3, he can only recruit soldiers of level 3 on the adventure map. To get soldiers above level 4, you have to rely on mission rewards. Besides, Grey Bone City will soon go to war with Gabes. Since the accuser has joined the war, he must need troops. Bai Yulan gave 200 or 300 skeleton soldiers, which was really a kind help. Only with soldiers in hand can you get greater military merit. But what Bai Yulan didn't know was that the accuser really didn't lack these troops. He could form an army by himself. The combat effectiveness was no less than that of a small legion. These skeleton soldiers joined the Chamber of Commerce Guard, and Xiaoming not only couldn't use them, but also had to spend more money on raising soldiers. It's not worth it. But the reward of the task cannot be returned. Since the system has given it, it can only be kept. Maybe it will be useful in the future. If there is a war, Xiaoming can't go online because of some things, then Xiao Wu'er can deal with it with these troops. Unfortunately, Bai Yulan did not continue to release the 4th ring task. Because the action of the dead is too fast. We must wait for other players. Like the Monster Guild and the Evil Guild, they are still doing the 1st ring task. This is the side effect of the fast speed. At this time, Xiaoming can only wait. However, the adventure level of the dead is already level 3, level 30. If it is upgraded by 10 levels, it will be the maximum level of level 3, and you can accept the task of upgrading to level 4. At that time, Xiaoming will be the first player to upgrade the game character to level 4. I heard that starting from level 4, the system will have rankings, rewards, and announcements for the characters who are promoted. It was too easy for players to upgrade their characters to levels 1, 2, and 3 before. It is not worth the system's attention. But the promotion to level 4 is different. It has been almost a quarter since the mainstream players reached level 3, but no player has reached level 4, which shows how difficult it is. Xiaoming doesn't know how good the reward is, but he thinks it's not bad. Of course, with Xiaoming's ability, the reward may just be useless. Originally, Xiaoming didn't plan to fight for it. Just go with the flow. Unexpectedly, he went with the flow and reached a position where he could fight for it. Then he won't be polite. Since the system doesn't give any tasks, Xiaoming will collect them himself. Dozens of shadow clones fill the streets and alleys of Grey Bone City. Basically, as long as it is a task that can be completed quickly, the clone will accept it, and then quickly complete it to get the reward. It doesn't rely on the quality of the task, but relies on the huge number to accumulate experience. Of course, if you encounter some good tasks, you will definitely accept them. However, it is difficult to accept the kind of tasks that can allow players to upgrade 5 levels at one time. Xiaoming was busy all day, and by noon on October 20th, he had completed hundreds of tasks of all sizes. The experience added together is not enough to upgrade the dead reporter by 1 level. It can only be said that it is fast. If you work hard for another day, it should be upgraded to level 31. Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk, alas, no wonder no player has broken through the 4th level so far. It is really too difficult. Xiaoming shook his head and handed the dead reporter to the intelligent program for control, and switched roles to the researcher. There are still important things over there. Actually, 2 days ago, on the strategic map, Luque Tomato led the Delvers troops to a ruin. This is another place where the Death Harvest can be used. It's just that Xiaoming wanted to complete the task of informing the dead as soon as possible. The time was quite urgent. So he put it aside for the time being. It should be completed today. If he delays any longer, Luque's favorability will probably decrease. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1377. Death Harvest. Xiaoming is so skilled that he can perform it perfectly even when he is dozing off. He finished it in 20 seconds after going online. The next task of recruiting the skeleton soldiers was a bit more difficult. For this harvest, the intelligent program Xiao Sainer was very smart, or rather, Luque Tomato provided good suggestions. While they were waiting for Xiaoming to go online, they visited the 3 nearby Indian villages, promoted it vigorously, and brought 2 village chiefs to watch the ceremony. These 2 village chiefs, like the old bison, are elderly people. The village chief who did not come is a strong man in his 30s who believes more in his own strength. Luque's intention is self-evident. He just hopes that the incident in the bison village can be repeated. After all, Death Harvest can be regarded as a miracle in the American continent. The most amazing thing is that the undead harvested can actually distinguish between enemies and friends. The result is naturally not unexpected. The 2 new villages are indeed vying to join the researcher. Xiaoming finally enjoyed the treatment of a hero bowing down to him. But this hero was trembling and almost losing all his teeth, which was not very impressive. Because it was farther away from the sea, it was a little safer. The situation of these 2 villages was slightly better than that of the bison village. But it also needed to strengthen its defense. If it were not for these 2 villages, the researcher would not have needed to recruit skeleton soldiers. He still planned to bring puppets as the main force in his team. Only when the villages under his command needed guarding power would Xiaoming recruit a group of undead soldiers at his discretion. However, Xiaoming did not need to do this personally. Intermediate diplomatic talent is something that the researcher has at first glance. Xiao Sainer could also accept surrendered soldiers with his troops. Unlike the ability of Death Harvest that comes from Xiaoming, Once Xiaoming is not online, the intelligent program cannot be used at all. Of course, Xiao Saner did not practice the Force, and did not have the intuition to judge in advance whether the undead would surrender. And if the undead don't surrender, he can't lead the team to escape, he can only fight with the undead and destroy them. Although the undead destroyed by the driller's troops will not die in vain, they will become the strategic experience of the driller. But it's still a bit of a waste. In order to reduce this waste, Xiaoming chose to lead the team himself, ran for several hours, and collected a batch of skeleton soldiers. However, then, Xiao Seer, who controlled the diver, sent a message that there was an urgent matter that Xiaoming needed to deal with personally. He had to hand over the driller to Xiao Saner for management. Xiaoming instructed the intelligent program to be very cautious every time he started a war and carefully judge the strength of the wild monsters. Don't try your luck if it exceeds 1/3 of our army's combat power. The chance of surrender is not high. It's easy to say that the undead wild monsters below 1/3 will not cause too much damage to our army even if they don't surrender. Just treat it as a game. I don't know if Xiao Saner is a bit like Xiaoming in character, and he is so cowardly. He sublimated Xiaoming's instructions and lowered the standard of trying luck to 1/5. I don't know whether this is a good or bad thing. Xiaoming left to replace another equally cowardly guy, Xiao Sier. Both of them were B-level programs, and they are indeed more honest, cowardly, than Xiao Er and Xiao Wu. Before, Xiaoming left the old shoelace fleet under the diver in Southeast Asia, and asked them to help Zhao Rui with the task of building a country in Brunei. By the way, they also did business and killed monsters nearby. The old shoelace fleet will definitely visit all the port cities in Southeast Asia. The diver doesn't need to show up. After all, pirates are rampant in Southeast Asia, and no city is actually particularly safe. The diver personally leads the Sea Clan fleet, which can be underwater all the time without docking. You must know that in his fleet, in addition to the undead, there are Sea Clan. The Sea Clan can get all the supplies they need underwater. There is no demand for cities on the ground. It's nothing more than not being able to do business and make money. Sprinkle some water. Only when Charlie Old Ice Cream needs to go to the surface to do experiments, Xiao Sier will float the fleet. Find an island or a coral reef and let Charlie play around. When he's done playing, everyone can dive back into the sea. At this pace, Xiaoming only needs to come here occasionally. Use source energy to purify a batch of materials and process some parts for Charlie to use. The materials he processes each time are enough for Charlie to test at full capacity for more than a week. Generally speaking, the diver fleet rarely has problems. Xiaoming thought that only when Charlie makes trouble, Xiao Sier would call him to come and clean up the mess. On October 20th, Xiaoming heard Xiao Sier's request to go online. Xiaoming's heart shuddered. Could it be that Charlie blew up the Flying Dutchman? After hurriedly arranging the things for the researcher, Xiaoming switched roles, but found that no disaster seemed to have happened. Moreover, the fleet was docked and everyone was on land. David Diozzi, Emily, Bobby, Brian and other subordinates were all happy. It seemed that something good had happened. Master Diver, we have no bad intentions. We really can't make a living, so we ask for your help. As long as you pay some food, you can get the loyalty of a village, why not? An orc with a rat-like face said to the diver with a sly smile. His tone was very flattering, and the corners of his deliberately raised mouth could hang clothes. Looking at this wretched guy, Xiaoming felt a little unhappy. Looking at the various people behind him, there were orcs, humans, dwarves. Everyone was in rags, pale and thin, and it seemed that they really had a hard life, not pretending to win sympathy. But the expressions on their faces were all strange, as if they had different little thoughts and little conspiracies. Is it really good to incorporate such a village? Xiaoming couldn't help but be full of doubts, so he decided to find out the truth first. He activated telepathy to see what these people were thinking. These guys were only level 3 soldiers at most, and they couldn't deceive telepathy. After seeing through everyone's thoughts, the diver fell silent. He thought of a sentence, called "Poor mountains and bad waters produce unruly people." This sentence is of course not a truth, but living in poor mountains and bad waters, the people's lives are extremely difficult, and in order to survive, they can only do everything they can. On the other hand, are there fewer bad people in cities with rich lives? Aren't there bastards everywhere? They are even more hateful than the so-called unruly people in poor mountains and bad waters. After all, they are forced by life, they choose to do evil. Among the large group of people in front of the diver, there are unruly people, bastards, and honest people, but not many. In the environment of Southeast Asia, it is difficult for honest people to survive. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1378. This small fishing village by the sea is located at the junction of the Indonesian Ocean and Southeast Asia. But it is relatively remote and far from the main shipping routes. To be precise, it is located in the northeast of the Bay of Bengal. Going south through the Andaman Sea, you will enter the Strait of Malacca. The village is called Amman. It is not the Amman in Jordan's capital on the parallel world Earth. It should be near Yangon, the capital of Myanmar. On Pangustar, this place is still called Yangon, located in the east of the New Jin Kingdom. Using this kind of city name in the parallel world is probably the nostalgic thought of the time travelers. The New Jin Kingdom roughly covers the territories of Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. In this era on the strategic map, Amman is far away from the main shipping route. It has not yet developed and is still a small village today. However, Amman's geographical location is actually quite good. With the gradual expansion of commercial exchanges between the East and the West, it will develop sooner or later. At present, merchant ships and warships from various countries will not come to this corner. The pirates who often come here to wreak havoc are just some inferior pirates. Some pirates were completely defeated at sea, and the rest would hide here to survive. So most of the people in the village of Amman are pirates, or descendants of pirates. The fishermen who were originally honest were either assimilated by pirates or expelled, and the worst ones naturally died. The divers' fleet would not come here, always following the main route underwater, and would not pass by here at all. The reason why they took the initiative to come here is entirely because of David Diosie's keen sense of smell. The prototype of this NPC is David Jones in the world of Pirates of the Caribbean, one of the strongest pirate captains. His deeds will not be introduced here. In short, the pirate's tricks could not be hidden from him at all. So, following some clues, he brought the divers' fleet to Amman. Amman was in a very bad state during this period. The villagers here have only two ways to survive, one is fishing, and the other is picking up leaks. The so-called picking up leaks means that when some defeated pirates or navy drift here, they will secretly kill and rob. After all, fishing is not enough to make a living, and often picking up leaks is also forced by life. As for farming, it is absolutely impossible. Although the soil in the Amman area is fertile alluvial soil, which is very suitable for farming. But this group of pirates still hold on to the last bit of strange persistence, that is, they are unwilling to farm. In recent years, the two major forces around seem to have begun to pay attention to Amman. They are the Prila Chamber of Commerce that controls Malacca, and the Nagapur Chamber of Commerce that controls the Indian Peninsula. Although the two major chambers of commerce have no time to deal with Amman for the time being. But they have strengthened the cleanup of this area and driven away many small and medium-sized pirates. As a result, the opportunity to pick up leaks in Amman has become less and less, and the villagers have become more and more anxious. They are not worried that powerful pirate forces will come to them. If they come, they will surrender directly. Anyway, they can't beat them. Besides, all major forces also need manpower. The hardest part is before the big forces come. The living environment here is really too bad. In addition, the people here know very well what kind of character the pirates are. Amman is an important area located at the junction of two major forces. It is difficult to say what the attitudes of the two parties are. The two sides may fight for this place, or they may worry about not being able to defend it and destroy it completely to prevent it from being obtained by the enemy. Then these people will be worthless. After careful consideration, the villagers of Amman think that only by developing Amman to a certain extent and making the two forces reluctant to destroy it, will they, the local snakes, be more popular. If it is operated properly, it can even be a third party that the two forces have to rely on. The specific plan is to wait for the adventurers, players, to come here, issue various tasks to build the village, and let them do infrastructure construction. Use the manpower and material resources of the players to seek benefits for Amman. Not to mention, according to the normal game process, this plan of making money out of nothing is very feasible. Because when the players come here, they must have known that the strategic map is similar to the Pangustar map. Thinking of the location of Yangon, they will definitely come to take a look. Players come from far away, whether they are subordinate to each other or not, they may rush to do these local snakes tasks. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that this is a plot event arranged by the system. Throw out a fragrant bone to make the big guilds fight to the death. Given this situation, why did the villagers of Amman propose to pledge allegiance to the divers? Of course, it is because of the existence of David Diozi. The villagers of Amman wanted to issue tasks, but after seeing David Diozi, they didn't dare to do so. This guy is still very impressive. Besides, with the strength of the divers fleet, it can really flatten this place directly. It just so happens that there are no other players who can mess with him at this time. Faced with this terrifying threat, the villagers of Amman are also very single. If they can't use it, then just surrender directly. Hope to sell it at a good price. Even if they surrender, they actually have their own little calculations in their hearts. Some surrendered sincerely and were willing to give themselves a meal, some endured temporarily and waited for a chance to turn the tables, some had already contacted a certain chamber of commerce and were ready to act as traders. And so on and so forth. The half-orc who talked to the diver was the second type. He had always wanted to plant his own flag in Amman, hoping to become a local tyrant and dominate the world. This guy was not very strong, but he was ambitious. But then again, most people who would run out to become pirates were ambitious people. The question Xiao Ming needed to consider was whether to accept this group of people and this village. No matter what he did, it seemed to be a mixed bag of pros and cons. If he accepted them, he would get a village in a key position, and he would soon be able to develop it into a city, and his money prospects would be great. However, this group of people had ulterior motives, and they might rebel or attract the enemy at any time. The diver had to stay here to defend one or two. Xiao Ming didn't want the diver to be trapped in one place. If he refused them, he really didn't know how they would react. Xiao Ming certainly hoped that they would get angry and fight with him, so that he could eliminate them and occupy Amman. But this possibility is very small. After all, the gap in strength between the two sides is huge, and they must not dare to turn against each other. Then in order to preserve this plot and this mission, the system may not allow the diver to take the initiative to fight against Amman at this time. Wouldn't that mean missing a great opportunity? If you miss this opportunity, you will miss it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1379. Like Xiao Ming Xiang, his two subordinates David Diosy and Brian Barrowcliff also did not believe in the villagers of Amman. But unlike Xiaoming, who worries about gains and losses, they actually have ways to deal with it. David's plan is, as long as he regains some strength, he can kill these people first, and then transform them into special undead, and they will naturally be obedient when they fall. Brian felt that as long as he achieved some more results, he could apply for the Sea Tribe's village building stone with his family. When Amman was built into a sea city, these humans became a minority. Any wishful thinking is difficult to realize. Even if they bring over the two major pirate forces, the East and West, they may not be willing to provoke the mysterious Sea Clan. Xiaoming, who used telepathy to learn their thoughts, felt that it would be more beneficial to combine the two methods into one. Please note that not every player has this right. Only the leader of one force, the diver, can cooperate with the other force in this way. Other characters, even those who want to cooperate with other forces, must obtain permission from Ashbone City or the White Fang Chamber of Commerce headquarters. Xiaoming made a prompt decision and accepted Amman's surrender. More than 200 villagers in the village joined the divers. Sure enough, the other party's surrender was conditional. The half-orc Ben Wahid directly became the head of the village of Amman, and no divers were allowed to replace him. He even has 5 generals, more than 10 pirates, and several talents who can serve as navigators under his command. Although the number of troops is not large, there are many high-level officials. Even if Xiaoming tried his best to mix sand into the village of Amman, I am afraid that he would not be able to shake Ben Wahid's rule for a while. His strength is also quite good. As a blue boss level hero. Strategic occupation, level 2 and level 7 pirate, adventure occupation, level 4 and level 5 axe thrower. The 5 generals under his command are 1 green elite hero and 3 whiteboard ordinary heroes. 1 grey waste hero. The level is 1 level lower than Ben Wahid. And these 5 are evenly distributed racially. 1 each for an orc, half-orc, human, gnome, and dwarf. Everyone has their own little juju, who may not be loyal to the guest. But if there is a conflict between divers and the village chief of Wahid, they will most likely favor the village chief. At least that's the case for the time being. Xiaoming can guess how the creator of the game arranged it. If players want to actually get Amman village, let's start with these 5 generals. Give gifts little by little, complete tasks, and increase your favorability. As long as you can draw 2 or 3 of them to your camp, you will have the upper hand in the competition for power. However, the diver's method of dealing with them is simpler, cruder, and more effective. He planned to borrow the treasure death silver coin from the informant first. Use the function of silver coins to transform all these villagers into undead. The balance of villagers' loyalty is naturally heavily tilted towards the divers. Then use the divers' undead sea tribe talent to fuse them with the water tribe and transform them into the undead sea tribe. Basically, the loyalty will completely shift towards the divers. Finally, Xiaoming plans to give up some of the interests of Amman village and use Brian's family to turn Amman into a city of the sea people. That's basically safe. Looking at the death silver coin in his hand that had been strengthened 3 times by source energy, Xiaoming decided in less than half a minute to strengthen it 2 more times. The original level 3 strategic treasure, the death silver coin, has been upgraded to the level 4 treasure, the death gold coin. The upper limit for storing the breath of death has an extra 0 at the end, and is now 100,000. At the same time, the death gold coin has a 6th function, undead growth acceleration. The experience gained by the undead heroes, generals, and troops under the holder's command increases by 25%. This feature is an absolutely awesome strategic level feature. The longer the time, the greater the cumulative advantage. Unfortunately, it does not increase the probability of surrender of the undead troops, nor can it increase the loyalty of the undead under its command. Xiaoming doesn't know yet, but in fact, most of the mid to high level strategic treasures have racial alignment tendencies. It will have an impact on NPCs in the same camp. There are actually bonuses to surrender probability and loyalty. It's just that these are hidden attributes and the system will not express them explicitly. Players need to slowly feel it themselves. The game is still in its early stages, so even if you are a professional player, it would be nice to have a strategic treasure to use. Where else can you notice so many details? It's still possible to wait until later in the game. By then, there should be 3 or 5 sets of treasures and equipment all over the body. Even if you don't have a union yourself. If you change the treasures frequently, you will naturally discover the tricks in them. Of course, some players have foresight and have thought of it long ago. Over the next few days, the divers rarely left Amon. There are many things here that need to be handled by him personally. All the villagers headed by Ben Wahid were transformed into undead sea tribesmen, and they all had undead octopus heads. After all, divers only have the primary undead sea clan talent, and the sea clan arms that can be fused with them include octopus and naga. And they are not suitable for fusion with naga. In order to meet the needs of these villagers, Xiao Ming had to take his fleet to catch octopus monsters in the nearby waters. Fortunately, these guys are not of a high level. There are a large number of octopuses of the same level, so it is not difficult to catch them. After becoming an undead octopus, basically all Amon villagers are loyal to the divers. Because there is really no other way out. With the identity of the undead sea tribe, no pirate force can trust them anymore. Amon village is actually a human village. Now it is full of undead and sea tribes. Xiao Ming can feel that the human buildings in the village seem to be slowly decaying. Intuition tells Xiao Ming that this village needs to change its race. Otherwise, it may have a counter effect over time. It seems that in the future, we must be careful not to change the race of the entire village casually. If it weren't for the backup of Brian, the electric eel, Xiao Ming didn't know how to end it. Brian, if I want your family to contribute a piece of Sea Tribe village building stone, what kind of return do you need? Really, Brian Barrowcliff was very surprised to hear this. Marching towards the strategic map is something that all the families in the adventure map want to get involved in. And the sooner this happens, the better. Any family member who contributes to this matter will be valued and rewarded by the family. When the diver just took over Amon village, Brian did consider how to get involved. In the past few days, he watched the divers completely control the Amon village. His little thoughts faded. It was not very strong to begin with. He never expected that the divers would take the initiative to propose cooperation. This made Brian overjoyed. He once asked the elders of the family about this question seriously. The answer is to analyze the specific situation. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1380. Brian is just a follower, and the lord he follows is not a very powerful adventurer. It is obviously too ambitious to consider the issue of cooperation with the family now. The elders of the Barrowcliff family did not make fun of the electric eel, which was already a good fish. The answer to him seemed very casual and vague. The family's offer is generally between 10% and 80% of the corresponding income. Such a wide range of choices is completely nonsense. It is equivalent to saying that it is between giving away and taking for free. But Brian is also very smart. He saw that the diver had a constant flow of various goods in his hands and was very generous. He made some interesting things and took them back to please a certain elder with whom he had a good relationship. He blatantly bribed and accepted bribes. Catering to the interests of the elders really worked immediately. The elder often secretly told Brian some useful information. These 2 days, the diver had just acquired the Amon village, and Brian was not sure whether the diver would seek cooperation with him. But he wanted to make corresponding preparations. Everyone says that opportunities only come to those who are prepared. Young Master Electric Eel thinks that it is right for him to be more prepared. However, this matter has not been finalized yet, so he cannot speak it out casually. If it fails, it will be embarrassing. So, the benefits of winning over the elder before were reflected. There is no problem in talking to him privately, and there is no need to worry about anything else. The elder is grateful for his help. He really helped him analyze it attentively. He gave a relatively reasonable price. The Barrowcliff family can use one Sea Tribe village building stone in exchange for 25% of the daily production of Amon. These goods can be shipped in two ways. One is for Brian to bring them back to the adventure map for sale, the other is to establish a caravan on the strategic map after Brian's status is improved. In fact, with Brian's good impression of the divers, he can borrow the warehouse of the divers' fleet to help him carry goods. Just pay a little fee. Don't underestimate that 1/4 share. On the strategic map, although Amon has just started and the output of goods is not large, it is still a relatively large transaction. In the future, if Amon develops, the prospects of this share are still very bright. After listening to Brian's conditions, Xiaoming thought about it and agreed. In the next day, Brian went back and forth between the strategic map and the adventure map several times before he finally finalized the matter. Mainly because the Barrowcliff family was a bit troublesome, it required a high-level meeting to discuss, and even private bargaining. It took some time to discuss it. As soon as the Sea Tribe village building stone was obtained, the system gave a prompt, asking the diver whether he was willing to consume this village building stone to modify the racial characteristics of the Amon village. In theory, doing so is a loss. Amon was originally a system village, and Xiaoming could use the Sea Tribe village building stone to build a Sea Tribe village nearby. Then transfer all the undead Sea Tribes in Amon village there, and it will be over soon. In this way, the diver has two villages to develop. They can also help each other. If we follow the system's suggestion and change Anman village from a human village to a sea village, wouldn't it be two villages becoming one? It would be a huge loss. But in fact, the account is not calculated in this way. The map where Anman village is located is a level 0 map. It is very difficult to carry a village, and new villages are not allowed to be built in the short term. If you want to build one, you must first upgrade the map level. Only when it reaches level 2 can you build a second village. It takes a long time for a player guild to upgrade the map level. Not to mention the resources consumed during the period. After the second village is established, it will cost a lot of financial and material resources to operate it. The income is very slow. So relatively speaking, it is more cost-effective for the diver to transform the racial characteristics of the village as soon as possible. The system gives this option to take care of the diver, a C player. Of course, Xiaoming is more familiar with upgrading the map level. His source energy can do things that other players can't do. It can easily repair some abandoned buildings and make the map revitalized faster. But this is only relatively easy. It still takes some time. Xiaoming knew that he couldn't afford to delay, and he talked to Brian about this matter, just to work hard in the direction of transforming the race. At this time, he naturally consumed the Sea Tribe village building stone according to the system prompts, and turned Amon village into a Sea Tribe village. The time was almost up. Before midnight on October 24th, the diver had not left the vicinity of Amon. Although the vicinity of Amon was a level 0 map, it was really something. Whether on land or in the sea, there were many pirates wandering around and became wild monsters. These wild monsters were not very powerful. Xiaoming took the troops around and basically swept them all. Unfortunately, these wild monsters were all pirates after all, and they were not compatible with the divers. Almost no one chose to surrender. Xiaoming's wish to increase the population of Amon village was unfulfilled. However, there was no benefit on land, but there was on the seabed. Soon the diver found from the seabed near Amman that there were actually many pirate shipwrecks and corpses. Those corpses, Xiaoming was not too rare. After all, the situation here is different from that in the Americas. Most of the corpses in the Americas died unjustly. After Xiaoming used Death Harvest, they would become similar to friendly forces. The corpses here are not so lucky. They were all pirates when they were alive, and almost none of them were wrongly sunk to the bottom of the sea. Even if they are harvested by death, they will at most become undead monsters. If things go wrong, they will become a group of violent monsters. Divers do not have the diplomatic talent of researchers, and there is basically no possibility of surrender. Xiaoming is interested in those sunken ships. In the past, divers obtained a large number of wreckages of large ships in the sunken shipyard. After repairing them with source energy, they provided naval weapons for other characters. So Xiaoming has a good impression of sunken ships. The sunken ships in this area are naturally not comparable to those in the sunken shipyard. The number is several levels lower. The quality is even worse. Most of the sunken ships in this area are small ships, and the wreckage of medium-sized ships is rare. Xiaoming is not picky, and he pulled all of them to Amman. And there is no need to repair them laboriously, the hull can be disassembled and used as building materials. Naturally, the goods that have been rotten and deteriorated are not needed. There are also some things that will not be eroded by seawater, such as pearls and agates, which will become the wealth of Amman village. There are still many metal weapons in the ship. Although they are rusty, they can still be used after polishing. In addition, the divers also salvaged a small number of artillery, which can be used to enhance the defense of Amman village. In short, these shipwrecks have provided a lot of help to the development of Amman village. Xiaoming is thinking about whether the divers should continue to salvage after the weekend reincarnation mission is over.